UTMB, 20 ans de passion.
Nothing exists like this run, and that's what makes it special for all of us, I think. This race is probably the most special race in the world.
Oh, I had goosebumps.
You okay?
I'm tired.
This is a hard race, huh? Tough one. Tough.
My name is Mathilde Lenné. I'm a volunteer for the UTMB Mont Blanc, and on the occasion of the 20th edition of the race, I met with the people that contributed to the legend. Do you remember what you were doing on August 30, 2003 at 4 a.m.? You were sleeping for sure. But Topher Gaylord, our guest today, was about to live one of the most intense experiences of his life. That Saturday morning, the 34-year-old American was in Chamonix under the starting arch of the UTMB. In the cool of dawn, with over 700 runners pumped up, ready to give their all on the trail. 20 years after this first run into the unknown, Topher Gaylord remembers everything. Each pass, each descent, each emotion. He ran the UTMB 11 times. He finished second in 2003 and was a top 10 finisher a couple of other times. Topher is one of the Americans who have shown the most in the history of UTMB. He says that nothing compares to this ultra trail, that it is unique, almost magical. But what he does not say, out of humility no doubt, is how much this race owes him. First sponsor of the UTMB with The North Face for 12 years, he helped to grow the event and to give it a global echo. But partner or not, he is above all a passionate and inspiring runner. Hi Topher, how are you?
I'm doing great.
Thank you for being here. It's such an honor for me to have you today.
Well, thank you, and it's a pleasure to be here talking with you about UTMB.
My first question is the same for every guest in this podcast. Can you share your best memory related to the UTMB?
I'm going to share two memories with you. The very first year, 2003, at 4 a.m. in the morning at the start line in Chamonix. And for me, that was one of the most incredible moments because no one knew if it could be possible to run around the rooftop of Europe across 3 countries and return back to Chamonix. And for me, the emotion of running into the unknown was a very special memory I'll remember for the rest of my life. The second memory is really an emotion, almost brings tears to my eyes now, of climbing up out of Courmayeur and watching the sunrise over the Mont Blanc on the south side. And it's one of those moments where the absolute massiveness of the race and the beauty and magnificence of the race come together and join. And it's emotional.
You were just talking about this inaugural race in 2003. Do you remember how you heard about it for the first time?
I was living in Europe. I was running the North Face for all of Europe, the Middle East, and Africa. And I was a passionate Western States runner, but I wanted to find a 100-mile race or close to a 100-mile race that existed on the trails in Europe. And the Alps are amazing. And so I remember discovering through the website that was put up by the UTMB, the race, and initially simply entered the race.
As a runner?
As a runner.
Wow.
Yeah. And that was how I discovered the race. And then I shared the race concept with, at the time, our marketing and country manager for France. Okay. And they immediately said, we have to sponsor this event. We must sponsor the UTMB. And they organized for me to meet with the organizers, Katrine and Michelle Paletti. I remember the very first time I met them was at a cafe in Chamonix on a 3-day training camp. So we had a wonderful meal together. I think Vincent Delabarre also joined us. It was the three of us and my wife, Kim, and I, just the five of us. And we really created a bond at that moment. You know, most people now see UTMB as a massive organization, but people forget that this started as we call in the U.S., a mom and pop organization, but a small, simple organization with shared friendships and a desire to create an experience for runners. And it was a remarkable concept, but I think we also helped, from the North Face side, share and tell that story on a global stage as well, because we saw it as an amazing, unrivaled type of trail running experience that you can't find anywhere else in the world.
At the time, could you tell that this race could become the huge, unique experience it is now?
Yes, we did. They did. Because if anyone's ever traveled to Chamonix and you sit in the center of Chamonix, you look up at the top of the Mont Blanc, you know, you're at 1,000 meters. The top of the Mont Blanc is 4,800 meters, or just under 16,000 feet. It's the rooftop of Europe, the highest point in Europe. And the concept of running around the rooftop of Europe into 3 countries, all these villages, circling it, there's nothing else that replicates it in the world. So I knew that was special, and I knew it would be a great opportunity to see it shared with people around the world.
The North Face was sponsored for 12 years. Do you feel like you had a privileged vantage point to look at all the evolution of the race?
The course changed and evolved each year. I think that was the entrepreneurial spirit of Katrine and Michelle. And Michelle was really the trail director, so to speak. And so we would share an enormous amount of collaboration, 12 months a year, in discussing how the race could evolve and how, of course, the North Face can continue to be involved and help them tell their story. And, we would always talk about new and different ways to add more events as well. I think they recognize the desire to find shorter distances to bring more runners along on the journey. Not everyone can run, 165 kilometers with 10,000 meters of climbing. And so, finding shorter distances as an access point was a natural evolution of the race.
You are a 3 times top 10 finisher and the highest placing American man in the UTMB history. Trail running was born in the US in the 70s. American runners are obviously great athletes, but still, none of them managed to finish first. Do you have an explanation?
It's the great mystery. I think they've got some theories of why that's been. In the earliest days, some of it was runners coming over too soon before the race, so not with enough time, or runners underestimating how difficult the UTMB would be, but then some runners, we had in the earliest days at the time, they were the greatest ultra runners of their generation. Karl Meltzer and Scott Jurek would come over, and each of them never had or executed the perfect UTMB race. And, Jim Walmsley has probably been one of the most committed from a time standpoint. I think he's certainly taking the absolute right approach But even with the right approach, you still it's still a complicated course and moment to put it all together. But the American women, it's been a totally different story. You know, American women, it's been a dominating story with so many. You know, Chrissy Mail, a two-time champion, and Nikki Kimball, and Lizzie Hawker is from the UK, but she was a dominant female runner. Katie Scheid, Rory Bosio, and so these are just incredible performances by American women ultra runners. And so we'll see. I mean, it's sort of fun because it's still a crown that I think is an enormous motivator for American male runners to come over and figure out how to put it together.
And maybe the first American finisher will be a woman.
Could be. It's as the distance gets longer, you know, obviously it becomes more parity, or, you know, there's plenty of races where women are winning outright the race, and there's no reason that couldn't happen at UTMB.
I guess. We'll see. I would like to share something with you.
Okay.
It's a video from 2005. You are running the UTMB for the third time.
Oh boy, that's Courmayeur.
It's the middle of the night. You're eating pasta. You are obviously tired.
Hey, Julie.
How you feeling?
Oh, I'm all right.
You look great.
A little tired.
You don't even look tired.
That's good. There's a long way to go still. That is funny. That is funny. So,
Do you remember this moment?
I remember that moment, yeah. And I think that was Nico Mermou that was talking with me. And I think this was the 2005. This was 2005. And in 2003, I was second. In 2004, I really wanted to go for another top three or maybe even the top podium. And so I was absolutely going for it. And I had a really difficult time on the backside of the Grand Col Ferret. And ultimately that year, I dropped out in La Folie. And so that, if you've ever dropped from a race, you know it's incredibly painful to drop from a race, especially UTMB, because the next chance you have is 1 year. You have to wait a full year before you have an opportunity to run again, and you have to live with the difficulty of having dropped from the race. So in 2005, I committed myself never to drop out of UTMB unless I had broken bones. And this was the middle of the night in Courmayeur. And for me, nutrition is always such an important part of the equation for running a 100-mile race. So I was eating a bowl of pasta sometime very early in the morning and trying to stay perfectly temperature and get ready for that sunrise.
Was Kim crewing you?
She was crewing me. She was always my crew chief. In that first year at UTMB, I really liked, I was a big believer of simplicity in the crew. So I just had one crew. It was just Kim, and it was just Kim and myself, and it just allowed more intimate communication between the two of us and a cleaner way of operating together.
You just said it would take broken bones to stop you from finishing the race. What were you looking for on the trails around Mont Blanc?
I mean, for me, ultra running and 100-mile running specifically is always a run into the unknown. No matter how trained you are, no matter how physically or mentally fit you are, there's no guaranteed outcome. And that's a lot what life is about too. You don't know with life. And so for me, what I was looking for in UTMB was the opportunity to challenge myself in a way that would combine an adventure into the unknown with unrivaled interaction with Mother Nature and the mountain environment and the surrounding people that I experienced it with. And so that's, for me, that's what I was hoping to get out of UTMB, and I had got every one of those experiences out of my very first UTMB. I know it was amazing.
You've run the race 11 times and you finished second in 2003. How did you get ready for such an event?
Well, at the time, I was working and living in Italy, and I spent a lot of time in the Dolomites and in the Mercantour Mountains. And ultimately, I really believed already back in 2003 the importance of experiencing the trail. And, at Western States, we had these training camps. And so I wanted to replicate that kind of experience. And so about 5 weeks before the race, I said, okay, I'm doing a 3-day training camp, and I'm going to run the entire course in 3 days and see every part and burn it into my mind, and be prepared. That proved to be a really, really good training method for me at the time. And because it burned into my memory every detail of the trail with just a few weeks before the race.
This race seems to be very special to you. Do you plan to run it this year for its 20th birthday?
So I'm coming back. I'll run one of the other races. So I'll run one of the shorter races. And I think of the 20 years that UTMB has, since it's been born, I've been back every year, but maybe 1 or 2. But I come back now for the community. I come back for the community, and I still have built a beautiful, long relationship with many people along the course. And I think the race experience has evolved. It's much bigger than the early days, but at its core, it's the same. And, I think oftentimes, there's questions. Is the UTMB too big? Is the UTMB, how does it compare to some of the smaller, more grassrootsy events? And there's always a question, which way is better? I think the reality is both are amazing, and there's space for all of it. But if you've been to UTMB and you've run through Saint Gervais, or you've run through Lake Contamine in the middle of the night, or you've run through the streets of Chamonix, either in the departure or the arrival, your fingertips are filled with electricity. And that is incredible for any runner from any part of the world. And if you haven't experienced it, you should find a way to go experience a Chamonix race in any one of the distances, because they're incredible.
Even for the public. I mean, when I first came to Chamonix, I was like, okay, I'm going to watch those people running and running and running for days. For me, they were crazy people. And I didn't really understand the purpose of it all. Then I went to Chamonix for the UTMB, and that's where I understood something is happening here.
Yeah, it's electrifying. There's an amazing energy that spectators get from witnessing human beings entering into a journey of the unknown, and there's something runners get from the energy back. It's an exchange of energy. That's why, in ultra running, the runner runs every step on their own, but it's a shared experience between the spectators, the runners, the crew, and the pacers, all together, helping someone achieve something they never thought was possible, or just beyond their capability. And the UTMB race with, it's an amazing experience with the way the community comes together. If you've ever been, for example, one of my favorite spots to be a part of the race is Notre Dame de la Gorge. It's really the moment in the race comes at about 35 kilometers into the UTMB race. And it's really the moment that the runners leave the energy and chaos of the valley, Saint Gervais and Le Contamine, and they travel into the night, into the mountains, and it's the very beginning of a big climb. There's bonfires, there's people screaming. I mean, it's equivalent to a Tour de France type of experience, and I think Katrine really found a way to bring culture and music and the emotion that brings to the community, to the runners, in a way that had never been done before. And so it transformed the race from being just a running race to an experience for the runners and for the communities. And I think they were one of the first organizers that really optimized for the community, really looked for ways to include the community, include the emotion. And there is all the vision that the Pledis bring to bringing that emotion to life. It's not just by chance, it's by design.
Yeah, they did it on purpose. You talk a lot about the power of community, the mountains, the landscapes. Where does it come from? This love for people, for nature. It seems to come from the inside.
I get emotional. I'm the youngest of 10 children. And so for us, community was always a part of our family. And, my parents believed, we used to travel around in a big school bus across the U.S., and my parents believed in shared experiences. Nothing beats the experience of or the lessons in life than experiences in the outdoors, and experiencing them with a diverse group of people. And so for me, it's always, I think one of the most special elements of the trail running community is it's an inclusive community. It's an open community. It's a community that has great values, personal values, and it's a community that's accepting of each other and allows people to show up and come as they are and be who they want to be. And so I believe that the UTMB in trail running brings out the very best in people. And that was something that I wanted to certainly be a part of fostering and helping grow. And I think trail running can be a language that is almost like a translator, a universal language. And I think UTMB is that. To be able to show up at a race and line up with literally 85 or 90 different nationalities, and run the race together as one is a really special experience.
Yeah, I can imagine. It's now time for my last question. Take your time, Topher. Why do you run?
Oh, wow. For me, running is such a simple activity, yet it's an incredibly complex activity. It's as simple as putting your shoes, your shorts on and putting one foot in front of the other. And the idea of such a simple activity giving you so much out of life is probably the biggest motivator for me for running. It clears my mind. It provides community. It provides me a means to find the limits of my potential by challenging myself. The simple act of just saying, how far can I go? And simply putting one foot in front of the other to see can create a transformational experience. And so for me, it's a combination of the simplicity, but also the ability for running to help transform me as a person. and I hope make me a better person, both through my approach to how I view challenges in life, but also how I spend time in the community with the people I'm surrounded with.
Thank you so much, Topher.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Topher. Thank you for your time and your words of wisdom. Thank you very much. We've reached the end of this episode, recorded in Auburn, California, 1 month before the Western States race. It was a really nice moment, and I hope that Topher passed on his deep bond with the UTMB and his passion for trail running. Cet épisode a été produit par Lines Agency et Trail Endurance Mag. Il a été réalisé par Mathilde Lenné et Mélanie Pouey. Vous pouvez nous écouter tout l'été et découvrir ou redécouvrir le mythe UTMB. Si vous avez aimé cet épisode, n'hésitez pas à vous abonner au podcast et à mettre des étoiles sur les plateformes d'écoute. On attend aussi vos commentaires sur l'Instagram de l'UTMB Mont Blanc et sur celui de l'UTMB World Series.